The Nancy Drew games, or cyber mysteries as she so lovingly refers to them, are full of interesting and well-developed characters, but almost every game has at least one character that falls a bit flat or just rubs you the wrong way. This video is about those characters. As it says in the title, this is part 2, so if you haven't seen part 1 yet, get out of here, you doofus. We do things in order around here. Go back and watch part 1. I'll wait. You're back? Good. Once again, there are massive spoilers in this video, so if I get to a game you haven't played yet, just scoot on by it and come back later. Same rules apply as in part 1, so I'm not going to go over that again. Think I've covered everything? Okay, part 2, here we go. The Secret of the Old Clock is an interesting game to say the least, and while I like the 20s vibe and the mini-golf... Did he just say he liked the mini-golf? Should we call him a psychiatrist? Yes, I did, and yes, you probably should. Anyway, while I like the 20s vibe, and yes, the mini-golf, the characters are not the most compelling. I think that the worst character in the game by far has to be Jim Archer. Like Mary Yawzy in The Secret of Shadow Ranch, Mr. Archer takes a good while to get to, and while this wouldn't necessarily make him the worst character, his writing certainly does. He's pretty much just a strange old man that's only relevant to the game because Mr. Crowley left hints with him for not much of a reason when he visited the bank. Overall, he's an okay character, but he could have easily been cut from the game, and we wouldn't have noticed much at all. I lied in the last video, not on purpose, I promise. Ralph isn't the only fully modeled character in the franchise that isn't a suspect. We also have Fatima from Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon, with an F, none of that weirdo PH stuff. She also happens to be the worst character in Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon, just because I can't seem to find a reason for her inclusion other than the fact that the town needed to have at least a few people to help it feel lived in. Her slightly goofy accent and her less than slightly goofy costume don't mesh very well with the rest of the game. She just can't even compare to the extremely well-written characters that inhabit the rest of the game. Danger by Design has one of the most frustrating characters in the entire series. J.J. Ling is a strange character from the beginning. In your very first conversation with her, she even admits to Nancy that she enjoys lying to people just for kicks. As the game continues, though, it becomes apparent that she only enjoys lying to people to make her seem more suspicious because her character becomes virtually pointless in the latter half of the game. The moment that cements her as one of the worst characters ever, though, is the time that she refuses to go to work unless Nancy makes her cookies. There is no reason for this. She will even stand outside of Manette's office until you're done, which just proves that she is actually making a conscious effort to be annoying. After that whole situation, she just almost completely drops out of the game, which leads me to believe that she was really just designed to be difficult. At this point, I firmly believe that I am one of only about 27 people that actually loves Creature of Kappu Cave. Even I have to admit, though, the writing in this game is pretty sloppy. Any of the characters but the Hardy Boys, and maybe Dr. Craven, could classify as the worst character in the game. I personally went with Dr. Quigley Kim for a few main reasons. First, even though she isn't the culprit, Dr. Kim causes almost all of the problems in this game, and she barely takes the time to talk to you, and when she does, she seems completely clueless. And second, Frass. Ah, Frass. I believe I've said enough. I'll be honest with you, I don't like the White Wolf of Icicle Creek at all. I've only been able to get through it maybe once or twice. I just can't go through the endless repetitive puzzles that by the time you're almost finished with the game, just feel a bit mindless. One of the worst puzzles revolves around easily the worst character in the game, which would be Freddy. She serves very little purpose other than as an obstacle and later in the game a toasty pack dispenser. While pummeling her with snowballs is satisfying at first, it gets old very, very fast. I initially couldn't decide which character I considered to be the worst in The Legend of the Crystal Skull, since they are all interesting or important in some way, and they all have their little secrets and very unique personalities. As I dug a little bit deeper though, I remember just how creepy Dr. Buford came off as when we first talked to him as Bess. That's why I'll have to make him the worst character. Yes, it's a little bit of a technicality since it's only one conversation, but all of the characters in this game are very well written, and it's impossible to choose the worst. I also don't think it would be super fair to include Shorty the Gumbo Man, since he's not really a full character, he's only a shirt and a voice, and it's not his fault that all he can do is serve up gumbo and other cooked creepy crawly thingamajigs. The Phantom of Venice is structured very differently from every other game in the main Nancy Drew series. There are some characters that we already know are guilty from the start, and there are some that are our normal suspects. And while I enjoy this change, it made choosing the worst character in this game pretty difficult. Even though he's actually one of my favorite characters in the game, and I love Scopa, Enrico Tozza is another one of those characters that ultimately just serves as a plot device. He serves as Nancy's way into the crime ring, and he accidentally gives us valuable information multiple times, but he mostly just serves as the guy we have to play Scopa with. He forces us to play Scopa with him almost every single time we speak to him, maybe every time we speak to him. And this isn't as much of an issue with me, because I enjoy playing Scopa, I'll play it in my free time even, but I can easily see how tedious this could be for someone who doesn't like to play Scopa. The worst character in The Haunting of Castle Malloy is a pretty easy choice for me. The worst character by far has to be our very own kidnapping victim, Matt. Yes, the story revolves around him, and no, it's probably not fair to consider the guy who only shows up for a few minutes at the very end of the game to be the worst character. I'm reading a bit between the lines here though. If you pay attention to the dialogue of some of the other characters, it seems like Matt is actually a pretty awful person overall, and not in a fun way. His own fiancée believes that he ran off before his own wedding because he thought that it would be a funny little prank. That's not funny, and neither is traumatizing me with a banshee at a very young age. Come on, Her Interactive. Oh boy. There are only 2 actual characters in Ransom of the Seven Ships, unless you count Cuckoo and the monkeys, and they don't really count for this. And the 2 that are real are both pretty bad. I'd say that both Dwayne Powers, spoiler alert, and George are pretty interchangeable as the worst character in this game. My personal choice would have to be George though, because she really doesn't do too much at all to help Nancy, unless Nancy's completely gone and trapped somewhere. She really just sits complaining for most of the game. I would be out solving puzzles all the way across the island, and I'd come back and George was still whacking that phone off of the table, because that fixed it for sure. I do know, however, that a ton of people have issues with Dwayne Powers in this game too, for good reason. He's the main reason why Her Interactive has actually pulled this game from their store. You can still get it from Big Fish, I think, but you can't get this from Her Interactive anymore because they saw his portrayal of a Jamaican man to be problematic, and I completely understand. These characters, it's really just a matter of preference, so I'll let you guys decide on this one. Warnings at Waverly Academy has some of the most realistic characters ever written by Her Interactive, and I've really grown to appreciate them as I've gotten older. Most of the characters are easily comparable to people I've met in real life. The likable people and also those other guys over there. I can't really call Izzy the worst character in the game because she is so well done that she could be considered better than many of the suspects in other games, even if she is a bit annoying. Though she might not immediately come to mind, I can't stand Leela Yadav. While everyone else is working hard on trying to make valedictorian, Leela is taking a break because she's got everything under control. She is that kid, and boy does she bug me. Her extremely cocky demeanor in every conversation is just so obnoxious it drives me up the wall, and that pretty much forces me to make her the worst character in Warnings at Waverly Academy. I am part of the very exclusive Trail of the Twister fan club, but even I have to admit that it has many issues. Most of these issues actually come exclusively from Debbie Kirkham is her last name, I think. I don't know. I should have looked it up. Anyway, the biggest complaint from everyone about this game is the astounding amount of chores that are present in the game. Who gives these chores to you? Debbie. The game also starts every single day with a lengthy conversation with her, which can get old pretty fast. Like I said already, I really like this game actually. It's one of my favorites, even though not a lot of people like it. And even I got sick of Debbie pretty quickly after having to listen to her every single morning for about 15 minutes. My biggest issue with her, though, comes from the ending of the game where her exposition dump really ruins any of the tension that was there when Nancy should have been chasing the culprit. Her Interactive really should have had Debbie talk to Nancy in the tornado shelter. I think it would have made a lot more sense and really helped the pacing. Either way, Debbie just isn't a very enjoyable suspect at all. And that wraps up part 2 of the worst characters in every single Nancy Drew game. As always, a like is always appreciated, and I'd love to hear which characters annoy you to oblivion down in the comments. Of course, part 3 will be coming very soon, so stay tuned for that. I'm trying to get back on an upload schedule, but my AP Literature class really has different ideas for my time. Hopefully until then you'll be patient with me and subscribe so you don't miss anything new whenever it happens. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.